Leo, let's not waste time. A secret talk about you just ended. And someone left crying in regret. That's not a headline. That's real. And the reason you're here today isn't a coincidence, it's timing. Divine timing. You felt something shift lately, didn't you? Maybe it was in your sleep. Maybe it was a name that kept showing up out of nowhere. Or maybe it was just a gut feeling you couldn't shake, like someone somewhere said your name, and it stirred something in the air. If you've had those moments recently, moments that made you pause and wonder if you were being spoken about, this is your confirmation. You were. And what was said? That's what we're about to uncover. But I want to be very clear from the start, this is not a video about fear. It's about awakening, and more than that, reclaiming. Because Leo, something about your light unsettled the darkness in others. And when they met behind closed doors, trying to dim it, the universe was listening. Someone in that conversation couldn't hold the truth in any longer. That's where the tears came from. Not pain. Not manipulation. But guilt. That overwhelming kind of guilt that only comes when you know you've wronged someone whose energy was pure. And that someone was you. Now, here's where it gets personal. If you've ever been in a season where you stayed silent because you didn't have proof, only intuition, you know how lonely that space can be. Leo, you're not crazy. Your instincts were always sharp. This moment, right now, is about validating every single time you swallowed your truth because the room wasn't ready to hear it. Well, guess what? The room is listening now. The truth is rising. And it's not just rising, it's glowing. This isn't karma in a vengeful sense. It's cosmic alignment. Justice is rarely loud. It's slow, precise, and unshakable. And it's unfolding for you in ways that may not be visible just yet, but they're inevitable. This energy, it's not random. It's correction. And Leo, you're not here to be a background character in someone else's plot. You're the center of your own story, and the universe is making sure of that. So if this message already feels like it's echoing something you felt deep inside, if your body is reacting, if your heart is pacing a little faster, it's because you're aligned with the frequency of truth. Let it settle. Let it move through you. And stay with me, because what comes next will give you even more clarity on who was involved, what's shifting behind the scenes, and why now is the moment to take back your narrative without force, without fear, but with full conviction in your worth. Before we move on, let me take a moment to thank you sincerely. Every time you like, comment, or subscribe, it's not just an algorithm boost. It's a spiritual handshake. It tells me you're not just passing through, you're part of this. Part of the eternal mindfulness family. And your presence allows this message to reach more souls who need the same awakening. For that, I thank you deeply. Now, tell me what pulled you here today? What moment, what feeling, what sign? I'd love for you to share it in the comments. Let's not keep those nudges to ourselves anymore. When one Leo speaks their truth, it gives others the courage to speak theirs. And believe me, you'll want to stay through the end of this video, because what the universe is revealing is not only powerful. It's long overdue. When the stars begin to shift in certain ways, something subtle happens, not just up there, but within you. Between October 7th and 16th, Mercury forms a rare trine with Uranus, while the Sun collides in hard aspect with Pluto. It's not just an astrological alignment, it's a release mechanism. The kind that pulls things out from behind the veil, truths that have been hidden, conversations that were never meant to reach you, and emotions that have long been sealed behind a facade of control. You may not have been in the room, Leo, but your name was. And sometimes, that's even more powerful. There are moments when energy speaks louder than words. Someone thought they could suppress a version of reality, your reality, by keeping it quiet, by gathering in secrecy and painting a picture of you that suited their narrative. But what they didn't expect was how quickly light can bleed through cracks. This is what Mercury trine Uranus does, it cracks the shell. It sends sparks of insight, messages out of nowhere, slips of the tongue, a found text, a misplaced letter. It's the kind of astrological weather that doesn't knock, it breaks the door open with timing so perfect, it almost feels divine. And then, there's Pluto, the planet of buried power and hidden shadows. When the sun squares Pluto, especially in a season like this, you feel the weight of exposure. The masks come off. The manipulations rise to the surface. Someone who thought they could maintain control of the narrative finds themselves face to face with the consequences of their silence or deception. And sometimes, that confrontation comes not through justice dealt by others, but by the one thing they didn't expect, their own conscience. That's exactly what happened. In that room, that quiet, dimly lit corner of back-channel conversations and whispered intentions, someone couldn't hold it together anymore. The weight of it broke them. Maybe it was just one sentence, maybe your name spoken in the wrong tone, but something triggered a wave they weren't ready for. And when they walked out, they didn't walk out victorious. They walked out crying. Not because they lost a game, but because the truth, Leo, is heavier than lies. And once it starts rising, it demands to be carried. What you may be feeling right now, that subtle anxiety, the sleeplessness, the random bursts of memory or emotion, that's not you being sensitive. That's your energy field reacting to something shifting behind the curtain. And you're not imagining it. You've been spiritually trained to pick up on currents others ignore. That's what happens when you're ruled by the sun, when you're born with the weight of visibility, leadership, and light. You feel it before it's confirmed. You sense it before it's said. And while that's a gift, it can also be isolating. Especially when no one else around you seems to notice. But this week, right now, the sky confirms what your spirit already knew. There was a conversation. And in that conversation, the version of you that was projected isn't the version that's real. And now, someone in that room knows it too. They couldn't hold the lie. Because your light has a strange effect on people, it either inspires them or exposes them. So if something has felt off, if you've caught your own breath mid-sentence or walked into a space and felt like you just missed something, pay attention. That wasn't random. That's resonance. That's what it feels like when truth begins to echo through the air before it lands in your hands. Stay open. Stay grounded. And if any part of you feels like this message is for you, don't ignore it. Acknowledge it. Write it down. Or better yet, share it in the comments. Because when you speak your knowing out loud, it becomes permission for someone else to do the same. You're not alone in this, Leo. And the timing of your awareness is everything. There's something about tarot that doesn't just speak, it remembers. It remembers what your soul already knows, but your mind is still catching up to. And in this moment, as we dive deeper into what's really unfolding for you, Leo, the cards laid out like markers on a map, not to predict your future, but to help you understand the path you've already walked, and why things are surfacing now. The first card, the Seven of Swords reversed. If you've ever been lied to, you know this energy well, that lingering feeling like something was taken from you, not just in the physical sense, but emotionally, energetically. This card doesn't whisper. It points directly at what's been hidden and says, no more. When it's reversed, it's not about the betrayal happening, it's about it being exposed. Whatever was spoken behind closed doors, whatever narratives were crafted to dim your light, they're no longer protected by secrecy. The veil is lifting, and those who tried to conceal the truth are being revealed by their own discomfort. That's the irony of deception, it can only survive in silence. And you, Leo, were never meant to stay quiet. Then comes Judgment, the card that doesn't ask for revenge, but demands responsibility. This energy is humbling. It's the moment someone who thought they could walk away without consequence is faced with their own reflection, and it's not always a comfortable one. You may not witness this confrontation with your eyes, but you'll feel it. You'll feel the shift in how someone looks at you. The awkward pauses. The slight regret in their tone. That's the Judgment card in motion. It calls people back to the moment they went wrong, not so you can punish them, but so they can finally acknowledge what they tried to escape. And then, the Star. It's not about who hurt you anymore. It's about what heals you. This card doesn't rise in drama, it rises in hope. It arrives after the tower has fallen, after the illusions have crumbled. It's a quiet, unshakable reminder that no matter what was taken, distorted, or used against you, your essence remains untouched. Your light is still your own. And what's more, it's beginning to shine again. You're not the person they tried to define. You're becoming the version of yourself they never could. When these three cards show up together, one exposing deception, one calling for soul-level accountability, and one restoring divine alignment, it's not coincidence. It's alchemy. It's a full-circle return to your power. And in astrological timing, it mirrors what we just explored in Part 1: Mercury's trine to Uranus revealing truth unexpectedly, and Pluto pushing hidden dynamics into the open. Tarot and astrology are different languages, but they're telling the same story, yours. You may not realize it yet, but your healing is already rippling outward. Even those who once misunderstood you can feel the change in your field. There's clarity now where there used to be confusion. There's gravity in your silence. And there's power in the way you no longer need to explain yourself. That's the medicine of the Star. It doesn't fight, it just exists so boldly that no one can deny it. If you've ever drawn one of these cards, or if hearing them just now sparked something in your gut, pay attention. These aren't just symbols. They're signposts. They show you what phase you're in, what you're rising from, and who's watching from a distance, no longer sure how to approach you. That's the sign of a shift. That's what happens when your energy outgrows the lie that tried to hold it down. I'd love to know, have you pulled any of these cards recently? Or have you felt the energy of one more than the others? Share with me in the comments. The card that resonates most with you may just be your guide for what comes next. And when we share what's moving through us, we open space for others to heal through recognition too. You're not in this alone, Leo, and you never were. There's something powerful about the moment you stop needing confirmation from the outside world because the truth already lives in your bones. That's the phase you're entering now, Leo. And it's not just healing. It's rising. A rebirth of identity, clarity, and self-respect. You're not the same version of yourself who silently carried suspicion or wondered if your instincts were off. You know now. And more than that, you can feel the shift. It's quiet, but it's unmistakable. Sometimes personal power doesn't come back with a roar. Sometimes it returns in fragments, a long-lost message, a name said in passing, a memory resurfacing without warning. These are the details that used to feel like static in your mind, but now they're forming a pattern. You're seeing connections where before there were only gut feelings. That's not imagination. That's your inner radar finally aligning with evidence. A truth once hidden is taking shape, and it's not just spiritual. It's practical. Tangible. Real. One of the most overlooked parts of any spiritual awakening is how often the universe delivers answers through unlikely messengers. A younger person. A friend of a friend. Someone who was never part of the original story, but somehow walks in with the missing piece. These are what I call destiny deliverers. They don't always realize the role they're playing, but they say something, share something, or even just look at you a certain way that triggers clarity you didn't even know you were searching for. If that's happened to you lately, a conversation that stuck with you, or someone's words playing on a loop in your mind, don't dismiss it. That was part of your map. Leo energy is ruled by the sun, which governs the heart not just physically, but energetically. When a Leo feels something is off, it usually is. You don't need logic to explain it. You feel it in your chest. The subtle tightening. The shift in someone's tone. The pause that follows a sentence that didn't sit right. That's your sacred inner compass. And what makes you different isn't just that you notice, it's that you remember. Even if you couldn't act on it then, now is the time when those small signals begin to make sense. And as that clarity lands, your image of yourself begins to rebuild, stronger, quieter, and more defined than before. You are not broken. You never were. You were simply shedding. Peeling away the layers of projection, fear, and false storylines that others tried to cast over you. And now, piece by piece, you're stepping back into a version of yourself that feels cleaner. Not necessarily louder, but more honest. More direct. More at peace. And that is the purest form of power, knowing who you are, without needing to prove it. If someone's face has been coming to mind, someone who may have known something but chose to stay silent, trust that. There's energy moving around them. A shift happening in the background. Don't rush to confront. But do notice. Even if they never speak, their silence tells you everything. And if you feel like writing it down, maybe just their initials, or a number you associate with them, do it in the comments. There's healing in voicing what you've been carrying internally. And there's power in allowing others to witness your process. This is your rising, Leo. Not as a reaction, but as a remembering. You were never the lie they told about you. You are the truth that's finally returning to itself, and this time, it's undeniable. When old systems collapse, they rarely go quietly. They rattle. They shake. They fight to stay intact. But eventually, the weight of falsehood becomes too heavy to carry, and what's not rooted in truth begins to fall apart. That's where we are now, Leo. You've entered what I'd call a karmic clearing season, not as a punishment, but as a release. And in this kind of cycle, the unraveling isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like people backing away without explanation. Sometimes it looks like a long-held alliance suddenly losing its glue. That's not rejection. That's realignment. You don't need to confront or chase or explain. Because the truth is already doing the work for you. It's moving through rooms you haven't entered. It's echoing in the conscience of people who once ignored what they knew. Some of them the ones who manipulated, who twisted your words, who fed off misunderstanding. They're now facing the very thing they tried to project onto you. Not because you fought back, but because energy always returns home. What's sent out doesn't disappear. It circles. It waits. And then, when the timing is right, it lands exactly where it's meant to. That's the rhythm of cosmic law. That's the structure of karmic balance. And then there are the silent ones. The ones who knew something and said nothing. Who watched it happen. Who felt your energy dimming but stayed quiet to avoid discomfort. Even they are feeling the pull now. Tears don't just fall because of sadness. They fall when truth breaks through the wall of denial. That's what's happening. For them, and maybe even for you. It's not just an emotional release. It's an initiation. The kind that purifies. The kind that shifts people from passivity into reckoning. And whether they ever tell you or not, some of those tears are carrying your name in them. There's a metaphor I come back to often: not everything that falls apart needs to be mourned. Some things collapse because they were never meant to hold your weight in the first place. Let it go. Let it fall. You're not losing anything that was truly yours. You're just no longer trying to make something work that was built on unstable ground. That's the core of self-healing, recognizing what's crumbling and choosing not to rebuild it out of habit. Right now, the energy is calling for softness but also structure. If your nervous system has been overwhelmed, your sleep interrupted, or your thoughts foggy, that's your body processing the emotional detox. And it's okay. This is a time for rituals that recalibrate. 10 minutes of stillness in the morning, just you, your breath, and the awareness that you don't need to rush. A warm bath with pink Himalayan salt or a cup of ginger tea before bed to help release whatever energy isn't yours. And one of the simplest but most potent practices, write down 3 things you're grateful for each night. Gratitude doesn't just shift your mood, it shifts your magnetism. Numerologically, this period holds weight too. The number 16, tied to the October full moon, marks a peak of revelation and renewal, the kind that shakes and reorders. Meanwhile, the number 8 is working behind the scenes, bringing things full circle. 8 is the energy of infinity, not just eternal, but fair. What you thought was lost isn't gone, it's just on its way back in a form that serves you better. If you feel drawn to certain colors right now, that's not random either. Fiery gold to restore your life force. Deep cosmic violet to connect you to inner wisdom. And iridescent teal, a gentle but potent hue to clear the throat, open your voice, and speak your truth without fear. So, Leo, you don't need to force the next chapter. You just need to let this one close. And as the false structures collapse around you, don't look back with regret. You didn't break them. They were already breaking. You just stopped holding them up. Once the dust settles, once the veil is lifted, and once you stop trying to explain what your heart has always known, there comes a quiet moment. Not the kind that asks you to wait. The kind that asks you to decide. That's where you are now, Leo. The truth is no longer hidden. The games are no longer sustainable. And the universe has cleared the stage not for someone else to take the spotlight, but for you. You've been through enough seasons of waiting. Waiting for closure, for clarity, for someone else to come clean. But what if you didn't need any of that to move forward? What if this moment wasn't about finishing someone else's sentence but about beginning your own? There's power in choosing not to need an apology. There's freedom in saying, I no longer live under the weight of what was kept from me. And there's deep, grounded self-respect in recognizing that your worth was never dependent on how anyone else treated you. In the area of work, you may feel a pull to change course. If what you've been doing no longer excites you, if your routine feels stale, or your creative fire has gone quiet, trust that this isn't about giving up. It's about redefining success. Let go of outdated goals if they no longer fit the person you've become. You're not the same Leo who used to overdeliver in silence. Now is the time to align your purpose with your truth, not with other people's expectations. In your relationships, especially the ones that feel unfinished, ask yourself, what am I still waiting to hear? And does that message even matter anymore? Sometimes the people we want explanations from don't have the emotional vocabulary to give them. That's not your burden. If you're still holding space for someone who went silent, this is your permission to let that go. You deserve connection that doesn't require decoding. Your body has also been speaking. The tension in your gut? The sleep that won't come easily? That's not random. Your nervous system is recalibrating after carrying emotional weight that wasn't yours. Support it gently. Consider adding probiotics to your routine, or a B-complex to balance your energy and stabilize your mood. Sometimes the healing we need isn't grand, it's quiet, daily, and consistent. Financially, you may feel cautious right now. And that's smart. Be intentional. But don't close the door on unexpected flow. Keep your budget tight, but your energy open. Because when you clean up the energetic leaks, the emotional debt, the unspoken resentment, the stories that no longer serve, life has a way of meeting you with surprising generosity. It's not magic. It's just how energy works when it's no longer being drained. This is a season of repositioning, of reclaiming, of rewriting the contract you've signed with yourself. Say it, even if it's just to yourself, I don't need to be paid back. I've already been restored by truth. That's the vibration of true liberation. You don't have to chase vindication when your alignment is already doing the work for you. And if you've made it this far with me, I want to hear from you. If something deep inside you is stirring, if your body recognized a truth in this message before your mind caught up, drop it in the comments. Even a few words. A sentence. Or just the phrase, I choose the light. That alone is enough to anchor your intention in the field. Because when you choose light not as a performance, but as a lifestyle, you stop needing permission to shine. You become the permission. And Leo, that's who you've always been. You don't need to retaliate, Leo, because you're already being restored. That's the quiet miracle unfolding now. The very things you thought were gone, your reputation, your peace of mind, the trust you once poured into the world, they're not lost. They're simply returning to you in a form that's cleaner, stronger, and more aligned with who you've become. There is a difference between revenge and return. You're not being paid back to even the score. You're being elevated because your truth couldn't be hidden any longer. You didn't have to shout to be heard. Your light did that for you. And the beauty of real growth is that it doesn't demand validation, it naturally attracts alignment. The people who are meant to recognize you will. The opportunities that were once blocked are now circling back with open hands. The silence that once heard is slowly being replaced by clarity, not necessarily through others, but through your own internal calm. You don't need everyone to understand you anymore. You only need to stay faithful to the version of yourself that always knew the truth. So here's my question for you now. What would shift in your life if you stopped waiting to be proven right? And simply started living as if you already were? What would you create, say, or finally walk away from, if you trusted that the universe had already cleared your path? That the justice you needed wasn't loud, but deeply real and unfolding? This is where your power lives now, not in correcting others, but in choosing how you want to carry yourself going forward. And maybe, just maybe, the real healing isn't about what they said or didn't say. Maybe it's about what you finally let go of carrying. Because when the lies fall away, all that's left is your integrity. And Leo, yours was never in question. You're being given a clean slate, not because you asked for it, but because you've earned it through endurance, restraint, and the courage to keep showing up for yourself even when no one else did. That's rare. And that's sacred. Before you go, take a breath with me. Think about one moment, just one, where you felt yourself shift during this message. Maybe it was a sentence, a feeling, a name that came to mind. That's where your next step lives. Write it down. Or better yet, share it in the comments. Say it aloud. Type the words, "Justice is here," if it resonates with what's moving through you now. That simple act of claiming your space helps anchor the energy not only for you, but for others walking a similar path. And if this message truly found you at the right time, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Every action you take here doesn't just support the channel, it strengthens the field we're creating together at Eternal Mindfulness. A space where truth is honored, souls are seen, and timing is never random. Thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting yourself. And thank you for walking forward with more light than you had before you pressed play. You didn't come here by accident. You came because your spirit knew it's finally time.